As it happens, I've got another video uploading right now, and since that pretty much craters my incoming and outgoing bandwidth to the point where using the internet in general is a very slow experience, I figured I might as well make this video. See, there's one thing I learned when I went down to Missouri and spent a couple of nights at Weasel's house. I learned that fiber is good for you. It's very good for you, and it's also very good for uploading videos as well. Very, very fast, spoilingly so. And possibly if we ever step into the modern ages around here in Illinois, or at least this part of Illinois, I might investigate the possibility and plausibility of getting fiber-based internet access for my own home, because it is just so much faster than anything that's available here, and it's really, really nice. But I digress. Went down to Weasel's place, and I had in mind to ask him if he would part with this computer. You see, this computer was featured on his Weasel show. He actually put it on his head. He's got a habit of doing that. It's very entertaining to watch some of the stuff that he comes up with. I couldn't get him to microwave his microphone, but I did get him to put his microwave oven on his head, which almost got him hurt, which was certainly not my intention. But he put this on his head, and this is an HP Vectra VE Series 2 5/75. But before I pop the cover, I will tell you that this thing has been the recipient or the victim of a little bit of hot rodding, depending upon how you look at it. It's a very high-end machine, of course. It has a 1.44 megabyte 3.5-inch floppy drive, and not a single speed, not a dual speed, but a quad speed IDE CD-ROM drive. So let's go ahead and pop the cover and have a look inside it and see what's going on. And here's your overview of the insides. Now, Hewlett-Packard used this particular case and motherboard design for a very long time. There are 486 machines that have this case, even though some of them come in a slightly different color. In fact, the local school district around these parts actually bought a bunch of these in the very late 1990s, early 2000s, and I think they got royally suckered because each and every one of them was shipped running MS-DOS 6.22 and Windows 3.1. But whatever the case might be, I have a couple of these that are also Pentium-based machines. However, they are the Series 3 machines, and all of them had a 133 megahertz processor installed in them from the factory. Now, the power supply lifts out toollessly. There's a little tab at the back that holds it, and then there's just gravity holding it right up front. The same with the front panel control buttons. It just lifts up and out. These machines are not totally toolless, but they are mostly toolless. There you can see the power supply fan, a rather large clock battery, the Intel chipset. There's a National Semiconductor Super I/O hiding out underneath there. There's a cache on a stick, or COAST module. I'll bet you wondered what that stood for. And then there are the memory SIMs. Now, this thing has an interesting mix of SIMs in it. I'm not sure how much memory is installed in it total, but we'll find out in just a moment. There's a connection point for a voltage regulator module, which would have been used with the later MMX Pentium processors that had a lower core voltage and therefore needed a regulator to reduce the voltage and prevent frying them. An interesting difference between this and the Series 3 board, the Series 3 board exchanges the Cirrus Logic video chip for an S3 Vision 928, I believe. We'll go ahead and pop the heatsink off of the processor here. You can't really see it, but that's a 133 megahertz Pentium 1 processor. This is actually the only overclocked machine I have in my house. And yes, I verified that. I went down here to this quaint little DIP switch bank, and I compared it to the legend here that explains how to configure the speed of the system. You can see that at the time, Hewlett-Packard thought that a 150 megahertz processor might come out, but wasn't here yet. My Series 3 systems actually have jumper settings up to 200 or 233. I don't remember which. I'm sure this board could probably be set to run a 200 or 233 megahertz Pentium 1 processor without too many flames. But this thing is the only overclocked machine in my house right now. Boy, does it make a difference. You could almost get it to run Crisis like this. Or at least you could have a better Crisis than you could at stock speeds. So it's running at 150 megahertz right now, even though it's a 133 megahertz Pentium 1 processor. That might actually be easier on the processor because the base clock is lower, 50 megahertz as opposed to 66. But now that you've seen the insides of it, and there's the quantum hard drive hanging in upside down, let's go ahead and power this thing up. I've not powered this thing up yet. I have no idea what it'll do. It might very well explode into flames. It's probably going to complain that its battery's dead if I have to guess. I don't know how long it's been since Weasel had this thing powered up, but we'll see. Here we go, it's all hooked up. Now you can see that this system has a key lock on it to keep intruders out and from stealing your computer hardware. And interestingly enough, almost every one of these machines that I have ever seen still has the keys zip-tied to the back of it, and this one is no exception. But enough of that rattling. Let's go ahead and plug this in and see what happens. Oh, it came to life. It's running. There we go. Second real startup, because I didn't watch the first one. I didn't have the monitor turned on. Go ahead and punch it, turn it on. See if we get anything out of it. Vectra. Now I know he was doing some kind of 80 megabytes of installed memory right there. You can see it does report that it has a 150 megahertz Pentium 1 processor in it. Now I think he was doing some kind of firewalling or routing job with this machine, so I may not be able to show you what it's booting into, but I can at least show you the system setup utility. Amazingly, the date's right. The time's wrong, but the date is right. Let's see. Let's set the time properly on this thing. 23:44. It's got a software key clicker on it. Alright, there's the time set. See what else is going on. No password set, integrated peripherals, printer ports, parallel port mode, serial ports. It supports a flexible disk swap if you had any need to do that, and I once did because I had one of these machines running Windows 98 and I had 2 floppy drives in it, and I discovered that with the cable that came with the machine it was pretty much an impossibility to hook them up so that the A drive was on top and the B drive was on the bottom. Now that trick doesn't work with operating systems that take over control of the hardware with their own drivers such as Windows NT and probably Linux, but it worked just fine for Windows 98. A couple more things in the setup screen. I'll go ahead and save our changes and exit, and I'll see what it boots into. Yeah, it's definitely been a while since this thing has been powered on. Wow. And for anybody who is wondering, oh, stop that. It is definitely running a version of Smooth Wall, but I don't have any logon credentials for it or anything like that, so I'll be erasing all of that and doing my own thing with this machine. Just what exactly I'll be getting up to with it, I don't know for sure, but I believe that it may be a stand-in for my mono wall machine down here, which finally died with a broken power supply, and unfortunately it's a baby AT style power supply, so I don't have another replacement for it. The board does have ATX connections, but I haven't rewired it so that I could turn it on and off using the ATX soft power capability that the motherboard has. So until I can get this machine rebuilt, assuming it didn't hurt the motherboard, I may just go ahead and use this machine. So there you have it. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave a comment if you have one.